Hey everyone, welcome to class number 9 for getting started with Jira Administration. Today we're going to be covering statuses and resolutions. We have a lot to cover, and if this is the first time you're joining, let me just get you up to speed. I started this series back in January. We kind of stopped in September, and so we still have October, November, and December. So we have 3 lessons left, and this is going to be the 9th course. Yeah, because it'll be 10, 11. No, this will be the 10th one, because then we have 11 and 12, which we're going to cover tomorrow and the day after. And so we have 3 sessions left in our getting started with your administration. So we're going to have a lot of fun. But today we're going to be covering statuses and resolutions. So in case you're wondering what's going on, that's what happened. Basically, in September, we dropped off of a cliff and we're picking it back up here before the end of the year. Happy December. We are down to the last 31 days of the year, if you can believe it. And so in the room, we got Hari. So hello. Always nice to see some familiar faces. So hope you enjoy the series here. And we're going to have some fun. Now, hopefully the links all work for you guys. Bevy has been a nightmare to deal with, and I am not very happy with that tool at all. And so I just sent out an email, and so hopefully a couple people watch their emails. But yeah, we're going to give it a few minutes for people to trickle in and get into the session here. Now, this session is being recorded and will be available on YouTube after. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button, now would be a great time to hit that subscribe button so that you can basically watch these recordings a little bit later. Turn on that notification because we do go live every single week. And in fact, we're going to be going live for the next, basically next 3 weeks, right? So all this week and then the next 2 after that. And so we have a lot of content and a lot of material for you. Say hello in the chat. We already have a couple of people here. We got Hari, we got Pooja. And so if you're streaming in or you're coming into the chat here, feel free to say hello. I always love to say hi to people, and I love to see where you all are tuning in from and see some familiar faces. Now, we do have a leaderboard here built into YouTube. So if you're interested in participating in that, the more you comment, the more you interact, the higher up you go in the rank. And so have a little fun with that. But feel free to ask questions, right? This is part of an interactive session. This is for us to communicate and to chat, and for more importantly, for you to ask me questions. And so if you want to get your questions answered, specifically, I would appreciate it if it's related to the subject material, but really any Atlassian Jira related question, I'd be more than happy to take a look at it. We also have membership opportunities. So if you are interested in getting early access to videos or member-only videos and a bunch of other stuff that I'm working on, then make sure you become a member here. And if you found this training helpful and you would like to use a super chat, which is like a donation, feel free to show your support and then stick around for an exclusive offer here at the end. Now, in the chat real quick, as people are coming in, I'm assuming people are starting to see the link and get access to the training here. How many of you have a status of canceled and canceled? In the chat, let me know, do you have both canceled with double L's and canceled with a single L? And have you ever wondered, why in the world do we have this? Like, what is the purpose of having 2 canceled statuses, right? So in the chat, let me know if you have that. And if you're watching the replay and you're in the comments, comment down below too. Do you have canceled and canceled? This has to be one of the most confusing things in the world. And I've actually had to Google this with every team that I normally go and work with. We always have to Google which one is the correct spelling. Is it canceled or is it canceled? Because technically, after my research and extensive research in this particular subject matter, both are correct. Now, here we have a couple of people. We have the double L canceled, which is the one I prefer. I actually prefer canceled, but it might be the Australian thing of Jira, but it also ships with canceled with a single L. But I do believe that the double L, at least in the United States, is the more popular option. And this is the one I have. But this is going to play a critical role here in this training. We're going to go deeper into which one should you keep and how do you get rid of one if you don't want to have both. So great feedback here in the chat. Got a couple more for you all. How many of you have a status of won't do, canceled, won't fix, abandoned? The list goes on, right? We have like a bunch of different options, but how many of you have done statuses of like completed or won't do or canceled or won't fix or abandoned, right? These are all statuses that are in your workflows, and they're normally green, right? They're like they're a final status inside of your workflows. But give me a little emoji if you have any of these statuses in your workflows today, right? And again, we're trying to look for won't do. We're looking for like won't fix, abandoned, duplicate, let's see, I'm trying to think of a couple of other popular ones, right? But if you have any of these statuses, right, and I'm specifically calling out statuses, we don't want to spoil anything for resolution a little bit later, but if you have a won't do, right, let me see in the chat with the little emoji. We got Rinjin here says we have all of them, right? This, I wouldn't be surprised, right? I've seen teams have like a list of like 10, right? 15. And the list can go on and can grow pretty big, but I'm just curious, anybody else in the chat, and if you're watching the replay as well, in the comment section, let me know. Do you have one of these? Do you have all of them? Do you have special ones that I don't have? Definitely include them here in the comment section down below. And so, yeah, so we have one person that has all of them, right? And so normally this is the use case, right? This is what I commonly see, is where we have teams that normally have these statuses. And we're going to talk about these in detail today. So make sure you're sticking around for the entire training here, right? But we are going to talk about whether this is a good thing to have or a bad thing. And I'm going to give you my opinion, and then I'm going to give you an alternative if these are statuses. Again, the key word here being status. We are not talking about resolutions just yet, right? But I want to know in the chat, especially for you guys for those of you just trickling in, do you have one of these, most of these, some of these? I'm very curious to find out. We already do have one person that has confirmed we have all of them. So I'm very, very curious. All right, oops. And we're going to go on to the last one. Have you ever, give me a +1 in the chat here. Have you ever tried to delete a status in Jira? And I'm not talking about removing. Atlassian does have a clear distinction between delete and remove. I am specifically talking about deleting. Like, have you ever tried to like completely eliminate a status from Jira? Okay, again, this is not removing it from your workflow. This is not renaming it, right? I'm not talking about renaming an existing status, and I'm not talking about removing a status in your workflow. I'm talking about a full hard delete, right? Like just completely get rid of that status. Have any of you tried it? I'm getting a couple of yeses. Rinjin, you are like my favorite person today. Rinjin says we have tried it. Jimmy Show says most, but all but abandoned. So yeah, so let me know, very curious in the chat, have you ever tried to delete it? Because it's not that easy. We're going to walk you through a real world example here today and kind of show you how to actually delete a status, because it is not easy. And deleting a status is not trivial at all, and you have to go through a couple of hoops, and I'm going to cover the gotchas. I'm going to cover all the steps that you need to know. So if you're excited in the chat, hit me with the thumbs up. We got a couple of no's, folks. You've never tried to delete a status, so you're going to be in for a treat, because deleting a status, as I just mentioned, is not the easiest thing in the world. You do need to go through a few hoops, and luckily for you, I'm here to guide you through those hoops. Okay, so that's enough of the questions. Hopefully you guys had fun. Again, I'm trying to make these a little bit more interactive. I want you guys to really take advantage of the fact that we're live, right? These are live sessions. You could be watching a recording, which is kind of boring, right? And no shade thrown at the folks watching the replay, right? But when you have the ability to interact, right, via the comments, like, or via the chat here, this is like the best way to get questions answered and to be a part of this community. So I love all the interactions from here. We got Cinch saying hello, and then we have Xander saying yes, but the first deactivated workflow. Yes, okay. Again, Xander, don't spoil it. We're gonna walk everybody through all the steps, but yes, we do have a keyword here, deactivated workflows. That is gonna play a critical role in what we're going to be doing here. Hello, Eric. Thank you for joining. Appreciate y'all tuning in and being involved in the chat here. Again, take advantage of the fact that this is live so you can get your questions answered. So before we get into the material, right, I just want to get some feedback from y'all guys on the questions. So you guys have a kind of a teaser as to what we're going to be talking about today, but some exciting news. In case you missed it, I did officially launch with Josh a school community. And so this is a private community. There's a paid community where we teach you and work with you. And there's one-on-ones and there's dedicated courses. And there's just so much going on inside of our school community, which is a very exciting place. So if you're kind of tired of all the different noises, right? Because you can learn Atlassian for free. This session is completely free. But in our school community, you get curated content. You get direct access to both Josh and I, total complete experts in the Atlassian field here. So definitely consider joining the school community if you're looking to take your skills to the next level and or be a part of something pretty big. Okay, so a little bit about me. I have the ACP 120, 520, 620, currently working on the 420. Need to get that last one there. I do have a couple of engineering degrees, one in computer engineering and then a master's in systems engineering. I run this YouTube channel here. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button, now would be a great time to hit that subscribe button. And then I'm also the co-host of the Jira Life. So if you're looking for an Atlassian community where you can basically learn about the good, the bad, and the ugly of all things happening in the Atlassian ecosystem, definitely join our community there. I pasted in my link tree here, so in case you wanted to check out some additional resources, I got a lot going on, and so there's always too much to list, and so go check those out. Ghost, I have not seen you in a hot minute, so thank you for coming in, Ghost. We are really appreciative of you being here. Okay, so with the questions and with all the marketing stuff out of the way, what are we going to be learning today? So we're going to be covering, in case you didn't infer it from all the questions that I was asking earlier on in the chat, we are going to be talking about statuses and resolutions, okay? And talking about how do we get here? Like, why is this important? Why is this class important? And mainly it's because of behavior. What oftentimes happens is that we like to, as Jira administrators, we like to comply. We like to make our end users happy. And so we create a status for this and a status for that, a resolution over here and a resolution over there. And pretty soon, before you know it, you have like the most like spaghetti built Jira in the world. And you're just like trying not to pull your hair out of your head because it becomes so unmanageable, and you have like 15 statuses that all do the same thing, and it becomes chaos, right? It becomes pure chaos. And so what I'm going to try to do is try to give you a little bit of insight into what you can do as an administrator, some of the options that you have, and offer you some help. And so mainly how to delete statuses, because there's some couple hoops that you have to go through, and then how to add new resolutions, and then how to add and remove resolutions inside of Jira. So with that said, we are going to jump out of the slides here. We're going to jump into Jira, and then we're going to get started here. So obviously, as a big disclaimer, right, in case I haven't made it clear, you all need to be a Jira administrator to take advantage of this Jira administrator course, okay? And so you need to have the right permissions. And so when you click on the gear in the top right corner, you want to make sure you can see the Jira admin section. Now, you do need to be at least a site admin. Sorry, at least a Jira admin. You do not need to be a site admin. You do not need to be an org admin, but you need to at least be able to see these Jira admin settings. So if you can't see that, then you're going to be a little bit not so happy. Okay. And so to do what we want to do, we want to go to work items here. And then on the left-hand side, we want to scroll down, and we're going to have statuses and resolutions. And when you click on statuses, this is where you're going to see a list of all of the available statuses in your entire instance. And so this is not just for one particular workflow, but rather all of the workflows, all as an aggregate, as a combined view. This is all the unique statuses that are in every single workflow. And this is where you're going to be able to find like duplicate statuses like in space progress, in dash progress, in progress together. My favorite is with Todo, right? I love to see to do, T-DO, T-O-D-O with no spaces, T-O-D-O with the lowercase d, right? There's just so many different permutations to add basically the exact same status. And before you know it, you have this really, really convoluted Jira that is just not working for y'all. And so this is where you come to review all your statuses. And we're going to come back here. We're going to come back because we're going to delete a couple of statuses. But first, we want to go and create some statuses, right? We want to go and create bad statuses. We want to create these situations where we add a status to a workflow, and then we have to somehow unravel the mystery that is how to delete a status. Because if you look at all my statuses right now, I don't have the ability to delete any of them. And that is because in order to delete a status, in order to delete a single status from this, it cannot be associated to any workflow. So you have to remove that status from any associated workflows before we do the deletion. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go create a bad status, and then I'm going to go embed it into a workflow, just like you normally would. And then we're going to remove it. And so the one we're going to do right now is we're going to actually do won't do. We're going to do a won't do. And then let me see if I have a status already. We don't. So that's good. So we're going to be able to do that one. Now, Ghost is asking, what about to do dash hidden? Because the team doesn't want specific to dos to appear on a board. Anytime that you're adding extra statuses, you're not using Jira correctly. If you don't want a team to show, if you don't want a specific status to show up on a board, then you just remove it. You just unmap it from your board. I would not be creating like hidden statuses. I would highly recommend you use your boards a little bit more efficiently and work within the laws and the rules of Jira, and not necessarily create, again, extra statuses. Okay. So how do we add a status? Well, obviously we have an add status button here to create a status, but this is normally not how we add a status. Usually what we do is we go into our engineering projects, right? And so I'm going to go into this Kanban project that I have over here. I'm going to just make sure it's a software. Yep, it's a company managed project. And usually what happens is we come into our space settings, we go into our workflows, right? And this is usually the requirement, right? We come into our edit workflow, and then some manager or some project manager, somebody high up in your org chart is like, hey, I want a new status of won't do. So you come in here to the add status. You always double check to make sure it doesn't already exist, because this is one of the easiest ways to accidentally create new statuses or extra statuses, is by not checking to see if the status or a similar status exists already. So in this case, one of the first things that I do to avoid getting into this dilemma is, before you make a new status, just double check, little quick sanity check, and make sure you don't already have an existing status. Because if you can avoid creating a new status altogether, then you don't compound the problem, right? It just makes managing and maintaining your Jira that much easier. So always double check, especially when you're going to add a new status. Just double check that you don't already have an existing status. Because again, if you're going to do a to do, and then you do to do with no hyphen or with a hyphen or with no space, right? You just should double check to see if it's there or not. Okay. In this case, our won't do does not exist. So we're going to come in here and we're going to do won't do. And we're going to do it of a category of done. And we're going to do this intentionally because this is going to do a double whammy for us. This is a redundant status, but it's also a resolution, which we're going to talk about in just a few seconds. So I'm going to click on add, and we now have a won't do status. This now technically exists inside of the wonderful world of Jira. And so that means that when I click on my update workflow, any other software, or any other company managed project or space, if you're using the new lingo, can now take advantage and utilize this won't do status. Okay. And so we have this won't do status. It exists, right? And this is cool, right? This is great. I can update my workflow. I can now close out of my workflow. I can proceed with life, right? When I go look at my diagram, my won't do is here. When I go back to my board, I can add my column here. So if I go to edit to my board settings, I can now map under layout. I can map this new status. And Bob's your uncle, right? Like, this is great. We now have it mapped. We have a status of won't do, and we can go here, or when I hit the drop down, I can now select won't do. But this, my friends, is where we hit our first problem, because won't do, as great as of a status that it is, it's a resolution. It's not a status. It shouldn't be a state. Whenever you move something to won't do, you technically should be moving it to done, and you should be setting a resolution of won't do. Because check this out. One thing that I did here, and you might have missed it, and for the experts in the room, let me know if you caught it, right? But one of the common things that happens when you add a quote unquote done status is you need to resolve the work. Because watch what happens. Watch this behavior here. If I move this task 3 and I move it to done, nobody blink, okay? Everybody pay attention. Watch what happens when I let go. Okay, notice that it got crossed out. There's a little strikeout through the key. Now watch what happens when I move my test number 4 over to won't do. Okay, it's gonna sit here, and then nothing. See, it didn't cross it out, and that is because we did not set a resolution for that won't do status. And Jira needs that resolution. If you do not add that resolution, Jira is going to consider that work as incomplete. And while you may get credit, you could get it out of your board by releasing these items. In Jira, it will never show up as resolved. It will never show up as completed work. And if you're using a lot of the resolution stuff that's built in natively into Jira, you're never going to get that credit. And your created versus resolved is not going to work out correctly. If you have a query that says, show me all the unresolved work or all my resolved work, it's not going to show it to you, because when I open up this particular task, we do not have a resolution. We have a status of won't do. Awesome. Yay. That'll work for some people, but we don't have the resolution. And so Jira is not giving you actual credit. Watch what happens when I open up my task number 3. We have the status of done. Yay. But we have the resolution of done. And now normally you don't have to automatically set the resolution. Jira conveniently, and this is, I think, why people get confused, but when you set up a new space in Jira, the workflow for done is automatically going to set us to resolve to done. But you don't have to do it that way, right? But because of that, what I just said, that done is always set in the resolution to done. As you can see here, automatically update the resolution to done. Because of this phenomenon, we're tempted, we want to, we urge to create additional statuses for different types of resolutions, right? But this is the bad behavior. You don't want to be doing this. Instead, what you want to do is you want to remove this update automatically the resolution, and then you want to prompt the user. We're gonna add a screen, which is in here as a rule. We're gonna add a screen and let the users pick what resolution they want. And so the proper way to do this, right? The proper way to set this resolution is to basically remove this particular resolution or rule. We don't want the resolution to automatically be set to done, but rather we want to create a new rule that if you go all the way to, let's see, where is it at? There, here we go. We want to show a screen, click select, and then the screen that we want to put is called resolve, and it ships with Jira, so everybody should have it, and it's just the resolve issue screen. Now, the resolve issue screen does ship with a couple of other extra fields. If you don't want that, you have two paths. You can either clean up this screen, the resolve issue screen, remove the extra fields, or you can make your own resolve screen that just has the resolution to select. But if I do this, once I do this, then now when I move something to done, right, I'm going to click update my workflow here. Okay, and I'm going to go back to my Jira, and let's go back to our board. And so now when I grab this status, and let me move these out of the way, right? But if I move them into done, now we got a pop-up, and Jira's going to say, hold up, wait a minute. What kind of resolution do you want? Do you want done, won't do, duplicate, cannot reproduce, decline, known error, hardware failure, software failure? And you can add whatever you want to this list. But this, my friends, is the proper way to do it, because this then avoids us from having to have statuses for won't do, duplicate, cannot reproduce, declined, and everything else abandoned. We got the crazy old man in the house. Good morning. Good morning. Happy December 1st to everybody here. Got 31 days left in the year. Okay. I guess 30 for not counting today. Okay, so this is the proper way to do it, folks. You want to set your resolution here, because when you do it this way, you avoid having to create individual statuses for done, for won't do, for duplicate, for cannot reproduce, for decline, right? And so you can see how you can very easily fall into the trap of creating all these extra statuses that are quote unquote done, because you don't know that you can do the resolution, because again, Jira automatically sets that resolution to done for you. So if you got value out of that tip, give me a +1 in the chat here. Let me know if you found that valuable, if you didn't even know that was possible. If you already knew that this was a feature, that this is how you were supposed to do it, give me a +2 on the chat here as well. So give me a +1 if you learned something new. Give me a +2 if you already knew about it in the chat here. So now that we have this workflow that works, we are now met with the dilemma of, okay, well, so now that we know we can just set a resolution, yay, how do we get rid of won't do? Right? Because we can go back to our workflow and we can simply remove this particular status. But removing statuses, right? Deleting a status from an active workflow is not something that used to be easy. In fact, in the old workflow, it used to be really, really hard. Luckily for us, I believe this is now true, Atlassian has now made it very, very easy to do this, right? All I need to do is map this status of won't do that I'm removing and map it to a new status. And when I do this, I can click on update workflow, and that status is now gone. Well, it's removed. But I'm going to pause here for a second, folks, because this phenomenon that I just showed you is a huge, huge, huge improvement over how Atlassian used to make us do it. Atlassian in the old workflow, if you've ever used with the old editor, there's an old editor that you can still work out of, right? So if I were to go back to the old editor, give me a +5 if you've recognized this editor, right? This is the old school editor. This is the old one that is being slowly but surely phased out. Atlassian is going to get rid of this editor, so it's better that you learn the new editor sooner rather than later. But definitely make sure you appreciate this, right? Because this editor is going to go away. But in the past, if I wanted to do what I just did, which was remove that status, I needed to go into my workflows, right? I'm just going to walk you through the phenomenon. I'm not going to actually do it, right? I would have had to look up my workflow. I would have had to make a copy of the workflow, and in that copy, I would have been able to remove that status of won't do, because the requirement here was, or the caveat was, Atlassian would not let you remove statuses from what they consider an active workflow, which means that the workflow is associated to a project. So you would have needed to make a copy, go to the inactive workflows, remove that status from that inactive workflow, go back to your Jira project, okay, go back to your Jira space. You would have then had to go back to workflows. You would have then had to go to add a workflow, add from existing, and then find your inactive workflow that we just removed the status from, whatever that one looks like. Click on next, associate it back to your word types, click on finish, and then we now had a problem because we now have the workflow without the status, but now we have an inactive workflow that used to be the active workflow that still has the status. So then we would have to go back to our workflows. Okay, this is all the hoops we used to have to go through. Go to inactive because it used to be in here, right? And then we would have to edit the inactive workflow, and then we could delete the status. And then, and only then, could we now delete the status from all of those things, right? So these are all the hoops we used to have to go through. But thank you to Atlassian for changing this because we don't have to go through those workflows or through those hoops anymore, right? Atlassian, in the new editor, we can now officially delete or remove statuses. I want to be very careful here. We can officially remove statuses from active workflows. And Mike, if you're watching this, I could kiss you. That was a great feature there. Valiant says, this is an eye-opener. I was dreading the deleting statuses for some time. Tomorrow is the day. Yeah, you used to have to go through a lot of hoops, folks. Deleting a status was a really big problem, right? But we've done this is a huge change. Yeah, Debbie, one of the best changes. I'm not the happiest with the new workflow editor, but the fact that I can remove statuses from an active workflow, chef's kiss for me, right? That is just so powerful. Okay. So you saw how easy it is to now remove statuses using the new workflow, but we're not quite done yet, right? Because if we go back to our workflow of our Jira project, and we go to workflows and we click on edit workflow here, we can add a status. And if I type in won't do, or if I type it in correctly, there it is. We don't want this. I don't want anybody to ever add the status ever again. So we need to delete it from here. So how do you do that? Well, that's where we're going to close out of all of this. And we're going to go back to where we started at the very, very beginning. If you all remember like 20 minutes ago, right? So we're going to go to the gear on the top right corner. We're going to go to work items. On the left-hand side, we're going to make our way down to statuses. And now here, I'm going to do a little quick Control F. Look for my won't do. And you can see that it's, Apple being Apple. You can see that it's at the bottom here. Won't do. Okay, now I'm going to move Debbie's comment here. Is this still a fireable offense? Renaming the workflow is a fireable offense. Removing statuses from your workflow, I don't think I'm going to fire you. So this would not be one of the deadly sins of Jira. Valerie says, I agree. I didn't have a clue they added this. Yeah, so now you all know. This is why you get some value out of these free trainings. Okay, so the won't do. Okay, here's our status. Now, because, and only because this is not associated with any workflows, we now have the option to delete. You can see that all my other statuses, they're all associated to a workflow in one way, shape, or another. Some of them are associated to like 38 workflows. Some of them are associated to 44 workflows, right? So the more workflows that these statuses exist in, you have to go to every single workflow and do the removal. Now, this problem is just way easier now, right? Because if I want to get rid of reopen, which I don't think is a good status to begin with, I can click on these associated workflows and I can go enter every single one of these in the new editor and just remove them. In the past, had I not been lucky and these were in active workflows, I would have had to do all the copying and then the replacing and then ultimately remove it, right? So this would have been like, it used to take me like a solid 2-3 days just to clean up somebody's statuses, right? So if I ever had a client that was like, hey, Alex, I don't want all these extra statuses. Can you remove them? I'm like, yeah, but it's going to take me like an hour per status, right? And they're like, how? And I'm like, well, because I have to go through all these hoops, depending on how many workflows a status is associated to. I would have had to made a crap ton of copies. And then that leaves me with a crap ton of inactive workflows that I now need to go and clean up if I want to do extra cleanup. So again, Atlassian, thank you so much for letting us use the new editor. But yeah, I'm going to go with Valerian on this one. It is still confusing, right? I hope they make better improvements on the UI and the UX of the new editor, but the functionality, it's working out really well. Okay, so again, in the past, if you wanted to remove something like reopen, you need to remove it from all 15. You would have had to go through all the hoops. Now, as long as you're in the new editor, just simply remove them from the 15 workflows, and you will then get this delete button. So once you go through all the hoops, you can just simply click on delete, right? And then you delete, and then that status is now gone. So if I go back, right? So now if I go back to my space that we were in, and I go back to the space settings, and I go to my workflows, and I go to edit my workflow, and I go to add a status, and now if I type in won, I can put my fingers on the keyboard correctly, you can see we don't have the option. It is gone. We accomplished our mission. Now, again, this problem has become 1000x easier because of the new workflow editor. Had we had this training like 6 months ago, we would have had to go through a very, very, very painful process of duplicating workflows, making workflows inactive, removing the statuses from those inactive workflows, applying those inactive workflows back to the main project, and then deleting the status from the new inactive, and then deleting that inactive workflow altogether. It was just like so many hoops, right? Like I said, it used to take me about an hour per status on average, just whenever somebody asked me to clean up a status. So folks, now that this is available, I would highly recommend you check out and go through your Jira, right? Because having these statuses, these extra superfluous statuses, can be confusing. It can be, especially when you have that total, right? The total with the space, the total with the hyphen, the total with the dash hidden, right? It's just so confusing for your end users. And so whenever possible, you just want to minimize that burden. And also for your Jira admins, right? Think about your Jira admins for a little bit as well, and just try to make life easy for them too, right? Because I have to make a decision when I'm adding a status to a workflow. Like, do I pick an existing one? Do I make a new one? Like, I don't know. I get confused. I get stuck, right? And it's extra overhead that you just don't want to add. And so whenever possible, go through, especially now that we're entering the end of the year, you can kind of like go and clean up your statuses a little bit to make life a little bit easier. Okay. So that was it on how to delete a status, right? We were very intentional with the word delete, not remove, because removing a status from our workflow, again, a little bit more trivial now, but deleting the status is something that does require you to go through a few hoops. So we are all finished with that one. But now that kind of opens up okay, so how do we add new resolutions, right? How do we manage the resolution part? So we can come to our gear and we can go to our work items. And when we come down, we're going to have our resolution. So in that screen, right, if you all remember, let me actually open up my Jira here. I'm going to go back to this workflow that we were looking at earlier. And if you remember, when I was in the project settings, actually, no, I want to go into the work item itself, right? If you remember, when I move it to done, I get this pop-up with the resolution, right? And I'm going to actually show you, because I do think I'm going to have a little few extra minutes here left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to clean up this resolution field screen, because as you can see, there's a fixed version and an assignee and time span, and sometimes you don't want all that, right? So I'm going to show you how to either A, clean up this screen, or B, create your own screen so you can use it. It's going to take just a few minutes. But ultimately, what we want to do, though, is I'm going to show you how to add or remove resolutions from here. So maybe you don't have a hardware team, right? Maybe you don't care for hardware failures. Well, let's just get rid of it. Maybe you don't have software failures. Well, we can get rid of that too. And maybe you have abandoned. Maybe you do want an abandoned resolution. Well, we're going to go and add that. But before we do that, let me show you how to clean up the screen so you can get the right pop-up for your team. And so to clean up the screens, we're going to go back over here and we're going to ignore the resolutions for a second. What we want to do is we want to make our way over to screens. Go says, how many resolutions do you recommend? Is it as needed, or do you limit the amount of resolutions similar to you to limit the amount of statuses? So that's a great question. So I wish that Atlassian would allow you to have like a resolution scheme so you can indicate which resolutions go to which projects. But because there is no scheme, Atlassian does give us the ability to govern in our workflows which resolutions are visible. I have to look up the command. I have to look up actually how to do that. But because this feature does exist, right, because you can control which resolutions are actually visible in that dropdown, I would say it doesn't matter how many doesn't matter is a strong word, right? But I would say I would be less concerned about adding extra resolutions, because ultimately you can control which ones are visible to the end user, right? But I would exercise caution, right? You want to make it make sense at the end of the day, right? You still want to have the right number of resolutions, and you don't want to just have extra resolutions because somebody's like, oh, I want an extra one, right? Like I would have them try to kind of work with what's available, because oftentimes like everybody thinks that they want a snowflake solution, but you really just got to shift your mindset a little bit, right? Like the difference between won't do and won't fix is the exact same thing. There is no fundamental difference between I'm not going to do something and I'm not going to fix something. It's like potato, potato, right? And so those nuances, like I would push back a little bit and go, you know what? This resolution is basically the same thing, right? Like canceled and abandoned. That is the exact same thing. If you cancel something or you abandon something, from a linguistics perspective, it means different things, but really doesn't mean two different things. Like if you canceled something or if you're not going to do something, isn't it the same thing as you've abandoned it? Like you're not going to touch it anymore. Again, you it just I will leave it at this, Ghost. You have to have the energy to fight. You have the energy, you have to have the energy to push back. And if you don't have that energy, then it's easier to comply. But this is how we end up with the messes in Jira anyways, right? So your job as a Jira admin is to push back every once in a while, because your part of your responsibility is to guide these people and make sure that your Jira is, as I don't want to say pure or clean, but you want to have a good Jira. And your responsibility and your duty is to kind of push back when you don't want to. Crazy Old Man does have a good observation here. So it depends on what metrics are being tracked, right? So sometimes your team does want to know the difference between what got abandoned versus won't do, or maybe deferred, right? And so it really just depends. But this is, you now have good business value, right? You now have a good business justification, and you know that it's going to be used by people. And so keep that in mind. Now, I will tell you, so did not know about the governance. Is that a workflow properties? Yeah. So let me see if I can Google it real quick. Jira, choose which resolutions are used. To configure resolutions in your workflow. So when you go to the resolution, prompt people to choose automatically. Nope. Here we go. So in your right here, Ghost. So in your property key, you can exclude resolution. So you can put the value. So you can put specific resolution values, and we're going to show you how to get that, right? You do have them at the end of the URL. And so you can just make sure you kick those out, and then you don't have to show them. So that is how you can have a lot of resolutions available in your big bucket of resolutions. But then in the workflow specifically, you can kick out specific resolutions that you just don't care about, so that your team doesn't need to be bothered by those. And it does allow multiple IDs separated with a comma, no space. And so this right here, I'm going to drop it in the chat for anybody who wants to see this. There is a way for you to not include specific resolutions in a workflow. So check that article out. All right, so coming back to Jira, we are going to, oh boy, I definitely lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, we're going to clean up the screen first, right? And so there is a default screen. It's called the resolve resolution. Let me see if I can find it. Maybe not. Maybe I don't know how to spell. Here we go. This is the resolve issue screen. This one ships with Jira. It's available. Everybody should have it in your Jiras, and you simply click on it. Now, again, this is a global one, so I would caution you. But if you absolutely are 100% sure you don't care about the rest, just simply come in here and remove these, right? You can just remove those items, and now your resolution screen, right? If I go back to my Kanban project, and if I move my task to done, you're going to see that my thing is now missing the fixed. Like we are no longer being prompted for our fixed version, and we're no longer being prompted for the assignee. I still left the log work, so it's a lot of extra fluff in here. And you can always do that. So you can always just clean it up however you want. Now, if you wanted to alternatively, if you didn't want to go through that step and you're like, you know what, I don't want to touch the global one that's for everybody, then you can just simply go to your screen, go to add screen, and go call it like Alex's special resolution screen. And when you click add, you can just simply click into it. And then all you're going to do is add the resolution here. And then that's it. So now we can go into our workflow for our space here. And once we're in our resolution, if I clicked on the right button, that would help. But once we're in here, we can now go to edit workflow. And for this transition to done, we're going to edit the rule here. And instead of this resolve one, we're going to pick Alex's special resolution screen. We're going to click on update. And now when I close this out, and now when I move that story to done, watch how this is going to be a little bit different. So when I move it to done, instead of having all those log works and all that other stuff, we now have this here, right? And so here's how we just picked our resolution. You will always have comments. So this is I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but you will always have a comment, which I think is a good thing, to just add a comment to why you're resolving something. Another thing that a lot of people put is like resolution reason, like why are you resolving it, and make that required so that when you move something to done, you basically have to put like, okay, this is why it's done, this is why it's canceled, this is why it's a won't do, right? You put the justification to the reason. So little best practice there. You need community of best practices to have everyone on the same page. You definitely do. All right, including resolutions. Yes. So it's funny you bring that up, Xander. So I'm working on my training for tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to be learning how to use Jira from A to Z with a bunch of different products. And one of the things that I'm working on right now, just to kind of give you a little peek, right, is I have a Confluence page where I have my requirements, but I have my processes. And so I have my workflows that I care for, my definition of ready, my priorities, what my priorities mean, my estimation definitions, right? What is a story point? How do you story point? And so it's important to have, every company should have some sort of governance confluence where you have all this stuff documented so that when you do have a new Jira administrator, or maybe there's a merger and an acquisition, or whatever the reason may be, you always have a place to go and document, like, here's why we do Jira the way we do it. Because there's no right or wrong way to do this stuff, but you should always have it documented so that it's true to you. So it's true to your organization and whatever you guys are doing. So just food for thought. This is something that I'm working on right now. Okay, so I just showed you a couple cool things there with the resolutions. Let's wrap this thing up with showing you how to add the resolutions and how to remove them. So first thing we're going to do is remove some, because I think removing is easier. So you go down to resolutions. Now in this particular case, you do want to be very careful, right? Because whenever you remove a resolution, you're essentially removing resolutions from existing work. And you want to be very, very, very careful there, right? Because anything that has that resolution, it's going to have a problem. So let me actually go do this, right? So, because I think I don't normally remove a resolution. So let's just do this. Let's go to this and put hardware failure. I'm going to remove the hardware failure. And I want to see what Jira does. I want to see how smart Jira is, okay? So now that I have a task with that resolution of hardware failure, what happens if I try to remove hardware failure, right? In the chat, does anybody know? Does anybody know what's going to happen next? Let me know. I don't know what's going to happen. We're going to do this together. We're going to find out together. Crazy old man, do you know what's going to happen? Okay. So we have hardware failure, and we're just going to click on delete. We're just going to get rid of it. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Perfect. So there's 24 items. And basically, if you remove an existing resolution that is actively being used, then Jira is going to tell you, okay, so you're removing me. What should I become? Right? Like, what are you going to do now? Like, what value should I have? Because everything that is resolved isn't magically going to be unresolved. And so you do still need to pick a resolution. So pick something that best matches your thing. And then now after that, you're going to be able to essentially remove that resolution. So that hardware failure is now gone. If I go back to my task over here that was resolved, instead of it saying hardware failure, it now says known error. So yay, this is really, really good. Crazy old man says it's all going to burn. I hope not. That would be, if there was a way to like burn it all down in Jira, that would be cool and scary at the same time. We should find out if there's a way to burn it all down. Okay. So that's how you remove a resolution. Now let's talk about how do we add a resolution. And so we're going to come to our resolutions, and adding a resolution is a little bit more trivial. You just simply scroll all the way down. You have to go all the way down, right? There's no button up at the top. I wish Atlassian's UI. I think if we delete System 32, you burn more than Jira down at that point. So I wouldn't recommend it, folks. Do not walk out of this training and say, Alex told me to burn System 32 down. Like, do not do an RM-RF on anything. Okay. So let's just add a new one again. You want to scroll down because unlike some of the other areas where you can just click at the top right corner, Atlassian's going to make us work a little bit harder for this one. And so we're going to come all the way down to the bottom, and we're going to be able to do like abandoned, if I could spell abandoned. Because Sean said so. Click add. Sean, if your name is Sean, you know who you are. If you know, you know. Okay. And then that's it. So now that we have this resolution, we can now go back to our project. We can go back to our space settings. We can go back to our workflows, and we can edit our workflow. And then here we can, oops, sorry. Nope. I totally went the wrong way. We just simply move the task to done. Ooh, my bad. Undo the last 5 seconds of your life. When we move something to done, we will now be able to select abandon. And then we can resolve it, and then Bob's your uncle. Or in this case, Sean's your uncle. Okay. And so that's how we resolve things. So now since we have a few minutes left, let me show you. Let's work through this example here. Let's let's figure out this property key because I actually don't know how this works in the new editor. So we're gonna explore together. So folks, make sure you stick around, right? Because we're gonna do something that I haven't done, but technically it's possible. But we're gonna see how to do it in the new editor. I know how to do it in the old editor, but I would hope and assume that Atlassian allows us to do this in the new editor as well. So I'm going to go into my edit workflow. I'm going to pick on my transition here, and we're going to go to properties. So there's a properties button. So we're off to a good start here, and we're going to add a new property. That's good. So far we're trending in the right direction. We're going to grab this text here, which is the exclude for the resolution. So we're going to go to this, drop that in there, and then we need the value. So to get the value, we got to go figure out what that value is. So what is the value for one of these resolutions? So let's go back to our resolutions, and we're going to hover. We're going to hover over software failure. We don't want software failure. So we're going to click hover over edit, and it says 1007. Okay, so I'm just going to come over here and just put 1007. Click save, update my workflow. And so now when I move something to resolved, I'm expecting to not see, software failure. Okay, so let's move something to done. And let's get it out. So we clear the resolution, and then we're going to move it to done, and then we're going to be prompted, and there it is. Software failure is not an option. So we are able to still keep software failure as a resolution. It's still in my resolution list over here. If I do a quick refresh, you can see here the software failure is still on the list, but it's no longer an option when I try to move something to done. It is no longer there. So yay, that is really, really good. Now, before we close out, I do have one little bonus extra cool thing that you should be aware of. Notice that when I move my tasks out, right, when I move it out of done, that the resolution clears itself. It's no longer cleared. It's no longer resolved. And that doesn't happen by serendipity or by just luck. In your workflow, you have the ability to clear your statuses. Your resolutions. So as you can see here that I have a rule that says automatically clear the resolution of any field. And so you want to make sure that this is present, right? Because these are not always visible when you add new statuses and new customizations to your workflow. So make sure that if you want to make sure that if you ever want to clear your resolution, that you're adding this rule to your workflow transition, specifically the transition, so that you're clearing it out. Otherwise, you're going to end up with the phenomenon of something's in backlog or in to do, and it's resolved, and you're like in this big what's the word? Oxymoron? I don't know. I use small words. You're going to be in this problem where you have something that's technically to do, but technically resolved. And so you don't want that. So and whenever you're moving out of done, so any transitions out that is not done, just make sure you're clearing your resolution so you don't end up with that problem. So that's folks. So in the chat here, let's get back to our thing. Let's see. What is the most useful thing that you learned today? What is something that you found very, very helpful? Let me know in the chat. I'm very curious. We talked a lot about some cool things. We discovered some cool things together. But out of all the things that we covered today, what is the most useful thing that you learned today? And if you're watching the replay, drop it in the comments as well. I'm very, very curious, folks. Again, I like to make these as interactive as possible. So if you don't want to hear me just begging you to put something in here, start typing away and let me know what is the most useful thing that you learned today. Whether it's something as simple as like how to add the resolution, how to add the status, how to remove the status, right? Like the new workflow editor was one of the popular ones. So what is the most valuable or useful thing that you learned today? Let me know in the chat here. And while you guys are typing those up, just going to remind you of a couple of exclusive offers that I have available here. We have our new school community that just launched about a month ago, and we are 61 members strong, but we're trying to get to 100. And so if you're interested in joining us, we do have this exclusive school community. It's a paid community. It's where you come to learn more of this stuff, but in a more one-on-one setting. So Josh and I are actually in like 10 minutes, we're going to be meeting, and we're going to have our weekly office hours where we just answer questions, we debate, we talk about all things Atlassian. And so join us if you are interested in that kind of stuff. And this school community is really, really cool. All right. So Rinjin says, adding statuses as resolutions to simplify. Yes, that is definitely one of the reasons why I wanted to do this one. That's a big one. Go says excluding the resolutions with the workflow properties. Yeah, I was hoping, I was thinking that one's going to be a popular one for you. That one's a pretty cool one. Okay, so school communities there. I also have a couple of courses. So back in March, I launched a Jira Cloud Fundamentals. So if you are a Scrum Master, if you're trying to learn how to use Jira correctly, I have it on sale here. It's going to be $12.99 for the next 5 days. Actually, for the next 30 days. So make sure you just take advantage of that. And then I have a course that I did a couple of years ago that I'm retiring. I'm going to be updating it with all the new lingo, with all the new UI. And so if you want it completely free, I'm giving it away for 2025. And so I dropped the link there if you want to pick that one up completely free. Feel free to take advantage of that. But again, more importantly, join that school community. Help us get to 100 members before the end of the year. We just got 30 days of this challenge. So we need 39 more of you guys. Okay, as far as ATEC-led community courses, tomorrow's a double whammy. We are doing issue level security or work item security and notifications, and then we're gonna do the no fluff guide to the Atlassian tool. So if you've ever wanted to learn how to use everything like Jira, Confluence, Jira Product Discovery, Loom, Bitbucket, Compass, like how they all integrate and how they all work together, tomorrow we're gonna be dropping that exclusive course. It's gonna be about an hour long. And it's going to be an awesome learning if you ever wanted to see how do all these tools work together in real world scenarios. So we're going to be covering that tomorrow. And so make sure tomorrow's a double feature, right? We're going to be doing 2 courses tomorrow. And then we're going to finish the week on Wednesday with permission schemes. So learning how to set your permission schemes for projects. So I just dropped the link for the community like courses. Sign up to one, sign up to all of them. And then we should have some fun there. On the next week, we're going to do and wrap up our Scrum Master trainings. And then the week after that, so in 2 weeks' time, we're going to wrap up our Jira for Project Managers training. So we have a lot of cool stuff happening over there. And so make sure you sign up for all those courses as well. Now, at the very end here, just to kind of wrap up, if at the very least, if you don't do anything, right, if you don't take action on anything, at least become a connection on LinkedIn. So follow me on LinkedIn. And I'm always very, very active on the social medias here. And so it's completely free to you. Follow me on LinkedIn. But if you do want to become a member, I have a lot of membership opportunities. You can become a member on this channel, on school. I also have Buy Me Coffee if you need like one-on-one help. Crazy Old Man and myself, we're working on some in-person boot camps for 2026. So if you're interested in that, let me know. We do have a merch store with some cool merch. Subscribe to this channel, subscribe to the Jira Life. And again, we're going to have some instructor-led courses and boot camps coming in 2026. All right, folks, that will put us in at the end for this one. I do have to jump because we're going to be doing our school community one-on-one office hours. Sorry, we're going to be doing our school community weekly Q&A office hours. So if you want to jump into that, make sure you become a member of our school community. And I will see you all tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be fun. So thank you for being here. Hit the subscribe button, folks. See ya.